Welcome back to Speak Up English Hub. Today we're bringing you a brand new explainer for our series, Easily Confused Words. And this one is a true masterclass. We're going to perfect your fluency by tackling those subtle, kind of tricky differences between common English synonyms. You know, if you've ever paused mid-sentence, just completely frozen wondering which word to use, well, you're exactly where you need to be. We're breaking these down side by side with some really vibrant, color-coded examples on screen so they actually stick in your brain for good. So, we've got a seriously packed agenda today. First up, we're looking at allow, permit, and let. Then, we'll figure out almost versus nearly. Third, we'll dive into alone, lonely, and lonesome. And to wrap it all up, we'll cover along and alongside. Let's just jump right in.
All right, section 1, allow, permit, or let. This is all about giving permission in English.
To really nail these words, we first have to look at this scale of formality. On the left side, you'll see permit sitting right at the top. It is highly formal. Right below that is allow, which is still formal, but definitely more common in everyday writing. And then, jumping over to the right side, we drop all the way down to let. That's your everyday, super casual, conversational word. So choosing the right one isn't just a grammar thing. It's really about reading the room and matching your tone.
Now, check this out, because this is where the rigid grammar rules come into play. Permit and allow both demand a direct object followed by an infinitive that uses the word to. You permit someone to play. You allow a child to have a TV. But let is kind of the rebel of the group here. It strictly drops the to. You say, let me show you. You'd never say, let me to show you, right? It just sounds totally off.
This becomes crystal clear when you see it in context. Look at how that blue permit sounds super serious and institutional when we're talking about a university committee. It feels like this heavy official stamp of approval, but contrast that with the warm orange of let on the right. Will you let me pay for the meal? It's just a casual, friendly offer between friends. Honestly, you wouldn't say, will you permit me to pay for the meal? Unless, you're trying to sound like a 19th century aristocrat.
Okay, so here is the absolutely crucial point, and this is a trap I see so many learners fall into, the passive voice. You can absolutely be permitted to do something on an official sign, and you can be allowed to eat fruit on a diet, but you cannot be let to do something. There's just no passive version of let. If you try it, the sentence just completely falls apart. So instead of saying the children were let do whatever, you literally have to swap the word out and say the children were allowed to do whatever.
Moving right along to section 2, almost or nearly. Let's look at how we measure progress and describe extremes.
The really good news here is that a lot of the time, you don't even need to stress about these two. If you're counting things, measuring time, or using extreme adjectives, words that push a concept to its absolute limit, like perfect, impossible, or frozen, you can safely use either word. It doesn't change the meaning one bit. Saying you're almost there or you're nearly there both sound 100% natural.
But pay really close attention here, because this is where the rules split. You must exclusively use almost, and I mean never, nearly, in 3 very specific situations. First, when you're softening a statement like, I almost wish I hadn't offered. Second, right before the word any, as in almost any building. And third, and this is the big one, before negative words like no, none, never, nobody, or nothing.
Pairing nearly with a negative word like never is a massive error you've got to avoid. Just look at the crossed out sentence we have here. She nearly never raises her voice. It's just flat out grammatically incorrect. It clashes, but she almost never raises her voice. Perfect. The takeaway, always pair almost with your negatives.
So, question for you. Are you traveling by yourself or are you actually sad about it? I really want you to ask yourself this exact question when deciding between the words in our next group. Are you just physically sitting in a room solo, or is your heart actually aching for some company? Because the difference there is massive.
All right, section 3, alone, lonely, or lonesome. This is all about separating states of being from states of feeling.
Let's map this out clearly. Alone is an objective physical fact. No other person is with you. It can be an adjective or an adverb, but if it's an adjective, it never goes before the noun. Lonely, on the other hand, means you are sad specifically because of that isolation. It's purely an emotional state and it only acts as an adjective. And then there's lonesome. Honestly, lonesome is just the American English equivalent of lonely. Same emotional weight, just a slightly different regional flavor.
This brilliantly illustrates the contrast in one single thought. Check out the green alone versus the blue lonely here. She was physically alone in the room when she got the news. That's just a fact of her location. But a journey itself feels emotionally lonely without friends. See the difference? You can physically be alone in a crowded room but still feel completely lonely.
So the master rules are captured right here. Think about it philosophically. We often choose to be alone for some peace and quiet, right? But we rarely choose to feel lonely. Grammatically, remember you never put alone before a noun. You never say an alone man. And practically speaking, you never use lonely to describe how you physically do something. So say, I go to lunch alone. Never say, I go to lunch lonely. Because lonely is for your state of heart, not your lunchtime routine.
Okay, let's head into our final pair today, section 4, along or alongside, navigating physical and abstract spaces. Both of these words function as prepositions or adverbs, but they paint entirely different pictures in your mind. Along on the left there focuses on moving parallel to a long shape. Think of walking down a long road or a winding river. It traces a path. But alongside on the right, that implies being in close, immediate, side-by-side proximity. It's about being parked right next to something.
Notice the picture these words paint. The 3 boats are spaced out, stretching parallel to the long riverbank. That's along. But the cars? William parked his car directly, immediately next to mine. That super tight side-by-side positioning is exactly what alongside conveys.
And hey, don't forget, alongside isn't just for physical things like parking spaces or fences. It works beautifully in an abstract sense too. If you're dealing with a heavy illness while simultaneously managing other life problems, you are dealing with them alongside each other. They're sitting right next to each other, side by side, in your mind.
So here's my final question for you. The next time you need to permit someone to walk alongside you, will you use the exact right words? As we wrap up this explainer, I really challenge you to consciously picture these color-coded rules the next time you speak. The difference between sounding like a native speaker and a learner is so often hidden in these tiny, easily confused words. Keep practicing, visualize the differences, and thanks so much for joining us for this masterclass here on the Speak Up English Hub.
Thanks for being with us. See you on our next video. Let's speak up.